The cowboy wanted a virgin bride, but froze when she taught him the first night. Clint had always been a man of the land. He grew up on a ranch in Montana, where the mornings smelled of hay and the sound of cattle lowing filled the air. His hands were calloused from years of work, and his boots carried the dust of endless trails. He was strong, quiet, and self-reliant, the kind of man who could handle anything nature threw at him. People admired him in town, not just for his work ethic, but for the way he carried himself, with confidence, yet without arrogance. Yet beneath the rugged exterior, Clint felt a deep longing. Life on the ranch was fulfilling in many ways, but he had never known the companionship of a woman to share his days and nights. He wanted someone by his side, not just any woman, but someone he felt he could protect, guide, and love completely. Clint had always believed in old-fashioned values. He was a romantic at heart. In the quiet way cowboys could be romantic, imagining a life with a partner who respected tradition and shared his dreams. For years he had thought about what kind of woman would fit into his world, one who would understand the hard work, the long days, and the sometimes lonely nights. He wanted a woman who was gentle, patient, and innocent in her ways. Not worldly, not complicated, but someone he could love completely, and who would love him in return. It wasn't a shallow desire. It was rooted in his vision of building a family, a home, and a life together in the open fields of Montana. Life had not given him many opportunities to meet someone like that. Clint often traveled into the nearest town for supplies or to attend local fairs, but most women he met were either city women who didn't understand the ranch lifestyle or women who had ambitions that didn't match his vision of home and family. Still, he hoped, he believed that somewhere out there was a woman who would fit perfectly into his life. And then, one late summer afternoon, that hope became real. The county fair was bustling with people that day. Children ran between booths, laughing and shouting as their parents watched from nearby benches. The smell of popcorn and roasted corn filled the air. Horses trotted in their pens, their glossy coats shining under the sun. Clint wandered slowly through the fairgrounds, enjoying the rare break from ranch work. He liked the energy of the fair, the way the town seemed alive for just a few hours, a brief escape from the quiet of the fields. But his attention wasn't on the rides or the food. He was scanning the crowd almost unconsciously, looking for someone, though he wasn't sure he would recognize her if he did. Then he saw her. Emma. She was standing near a small flower stall, examining a bouquet of wildflowers. Her hair was tied back neatly, and she had a soft smile as she looked at the flowers. Something about the way she moved caught Clint's attention immediately. There was a calmness in her presence, a quiet confidence that didn't demand attention but naturally drew it. She wasn't flashy or loud, yet she had a warmth that made people notice her. Clint felt a strange, sudden pull, something he hadn't felt before. He didn't rush over. He watched for a moment, trying to calm the unexpected flutter in his chest. Finally, gathering courage, Clint approached her. "Beautiful flowers," he said in his low, steady voice. "Are you buying them for someone?" Emma looked up, a little startled, but her expression quickly softened. "Oh, no," she replied. "I just like flowers. They remind me of the fields back home." Clint nodded, intrigued. "I know the feeling," he said. "I've spent most of my life surrounded by fields. There's something peaceful about it, isn't there?" Emma smiled, and for the first time Clint noticed the kindness in her eyes. They began to talk, first about flowers, then about the fair, and slowly about life. Clint found himself laughing in a way he hadn't in a long time, and Emma's laughter was like a soft melody that seemed to settle over him. She was intelligent, thoughtful, and polite, yet she had an honesty that felt refreshing. He found himself wanting to know more about her dreams, about her world. They spent hours together that afternoon, walking among the booths, watching the horses, and talking about everything from childhood memories to favorite books. Clint learned that Emma had grown up in a quiet town not far from the ranch, the only child of parents who had given her a sheltered but happy upbringing. She loved learning and had a curiosity about life that matched Clint's own deep appreciation for the land. She wasn't afraid to ask questions, but she listened carefully, absorbing what he said about ranch life, cattle, and the long, patient work it took to live off the land. By the end of the day, Clint knew that he wanted Emma in his life, not just as a friend, but as someone who could share his future. And Emma, too, felt something she hadn't expected. Clint was different from anyone she had met, strong, dependable, and yet surprisingly tender in his words and gestures. She felt safe with him, and the connection was undeniable. As the sun began to set, casting golden light over the fairgrounds, Clint knew he had to act. "I don't usually do this," he said, his voice low but earnest. "But I'd like to see you again. Maybe we could spend more time together?" Emma hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "I'd like that," she said softly. That small agreement set the course of their relationship. Over the next few weeks, Clint made frequent trips into town, sometimes with excuses, sometimes just to see Emma. They wrote letters when they were apart, exchanged small gifts, and slowly learned about each other's lives. Emma showed Clint the joys of simple things, books that made him think, meals that weren't just sustenance but shared experiences, quiet walks in the early morning. Clint, in turn, introduced Emma to the rhythm of ranch life, feeding the animals, learning to ride horses, understanding the responsibilities and pride of working the land. It wasn't a whirlwind romance, but it was deep, genuine, and rooted in discovery. Each moment together revealed more about the other person, their strengths, their fears, and their dreams. Clint admired Emma's patience and gentle nature, while Emma respected Clint's dedication, honesty, and the quiet strength that seemed to flow from him effortlessly. Both felt the growing certainty that this wasn't just attraction. This was the start of something meaningful, something worth building a future around. One evening, as the stars appeared over the open fields, Clint found himself walking beside Emma, the wind cool on their faces. He stopped and looked at her, feeling the weight of his emotions pressing forward. "Emma," he said, voice uncharacteristically unsteady, I think I want you to be my wife." Emma looked at him, surprised but not afraid. Her eyes softened, and she smiled. "Clint, I think I want that too." That night, under the wide Montana sky, they made an unspoken promise to each other. Clint, the cowboy who had always thought he needed to find the perfect, innocent partner, realized that Emma's gentleness and intelligence were the qualities he valued most. Emma, who had lived a quiet and sheltered life, felt ready to take this step with a man who respected her mind and her heart. It was the beginning of their journey, a meeting that would change both of their lives, a connection that would grow into a partnership neither had expected but both had longed for. Clint didn't yet know the challenges ahead, and Emma didn't yet know the strength she would need, but that first meeting at the county fair had set their path in motion, a path that promised love, learning, and the forging of a life together in the vast Montana landscape. After that first meeting at the county fair, Clint and Emma's lives began to intertwine in ways neither had expected. Their relationship grew slowly, deliberately, as both tried to understand what it meant to care for another person while still maintaining their individual lives. Clint's days remained full of ranch work, tending cattle, fixing fences, and riding long trails across the open land. Yet now, every task felt different, brighter, somehow more meaningful. He would often think of Emma while mending a fence post or guiding a stubborn horse, imagining her reaction to the things he did so naturally. It was strange for him to feel this way. He had spent most of his adult life alone, but he welcomed it with a mix of excitement and nervousness. Emma, too, was changing. She had grown up in a quiet town, sheltered by her parents who worried about everything from sharp knives to strangers at the door. Her world had been small but safe, filled with books, simple walks, and careful routines. Meeting Clint introduced her to a life that was bigger, wilder, and a little unpredictable. At first, it was intimidating. She had never been around livestock like Clint had, never worked dawn to dusk in fields, and certainly never considered the kind of self-reliance Clint lived every day. But she was curious, and curiosity had always been part of her nature, so she followed him onto the ranch, learning to ride horses, to carry buckets of feed, to understand the patterns of the seasons and the habits of the animals. It was hard work, but it gave her a sense of accomplishment she had never known. Their courtship became a balance between two worlds. Clint introduced Emma to life on the ranch with patience, showing her how to care for the animals, how to repair fences, and even how to mend simple equipment. He never rushed her, though sometimes his expectations were high, and she sometimes struggled to keep up. "It's okay to take your time," Clint would say, watching her carefully as she tried to wrangle a stubborn calf. "You'll get it. Everyone starts somewhere." Emma appreciated his calm guidance, feeling respected and supported rather than pressured. In turn, Emma introduced Clint to a different kind of world, a world of quiet reflection, learning, and gentle conversation. She would recommend books, read aloud by the fire, and discuss the ideas in them. She taught him about manners, social customs, and ways to communicate that went beyond simple words. At first, Clint found it odd. He was a man of action, not of reflection. But slowly, he began to understand that there was value in learning, in thinking about things he had never considered. He found himself looking forward to these quiet evenings, where they would sit together, her reading softly while he listened, occasionally asking questions that surprised even him. As their relationship developed, the townspeople began to notice the unusual pairing. Clint, a rugged, solitary cowboy, and Emma, a soft-spoken, thoughtful young woman, seemed worlds apart. Some whispered that Clint would never be able to change, that Emma would be bored on the ranch, and that their differences would be too great. Others admired the bond they were forming, noting how Clint's usually stern demeanor softened in Emma's presence, how Emma's shy confidence seemed to grow with each visit to the ranch. Neither Clint nor Emma paid much attention to the gossip. Their focus was on each other, on the small, everyday discoveries that made their connection stronger. Despite the growing affection, there were moments of doubt and insecurity. Clint sometimes worried that Emma might find the ranch life too hard or isolating, while Emma occasionally questioned whether she could truly adapt to the demands of the wide-open land. Yet every challenge they faced together seemed to deepen their trust. When a sudden storm forced them to herd cattle in pouring rain, Emma learned to stay calm and follow Clint's instructions, and Clint learned to appreciate her steady courage. When a calf became sick and needed careful attention through the night, they took turns, supporting each other, sharing the responsibility and the worry. These experiences taught them more about each other than any conversation ever could. Their courtship was also marked by small, meaningful gestures. Clint would leave notes for Emma in the mornings, tucked into her bag when she visited, reminding her to drink water, wear warm clothes, or simply telling her he was thinking of her. Emma, in return, would bring him little gifts, homemade treats, a scarf she had knitted, or even a carefully pressed flower from a meadow she knew he would ride past. These simple acts, free of grandeur, were deeply personal, a language of care that both understood without needing words. As weeks turned into months, their connection grew stronger. Clint began to talk about the future, something he had rarely done with anyone. "I can see it," he said one evening as they watched the sunset over the fields. "Us together, running this ranch, maybe even a family someday." Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest, a sense of belonging she had never known. "I can see it too," she replied softly, her eyes reflecting the orange glow of the sky. For the first time, Clint realized that this wasn't just about finding someone to fill a role in his life. This was about building a life together with someone who truly understood him. Emma, too, began to share more of herself. She spoke of her dreams for learning, for writing, for quiet adventures beyond the ranch. Clint listened attentively, realizing that love wasn't just about having someone by your side. It was about supporting them, encouraging them to grow, and being proud of their accomplishments. He found joy in her successes, no matter how small, and she found strength in his unwavering presence and quiet encouragement. Despite the gentle pace, the undercurrent of anticipation for their future marriage grew stronger. They both knew that eventually their bond would move into a deeper, more intimate territory. Clint, who had imagined a very particular version of love and intimacy, began to feel a mix of excitement and anxiety at the thought. Emma, too, felt nervous, but she trusted Clint and believed that together they could navigate the unknown. Their love was no longer a simple attraction. It was a careful weaving of two lives, two sets of experiences, and two hearts learning to beat in harmony. As the months passed, the bond between Clint and Emma became undeniable. Their courtship was not flashy, filled with grand gestures or dramatic declarations. Instead, it was built on shared moments, the quiet satisfaction of a day's work completed, the laughter that echoed across the fields, the warmth of a hand held at the right moment. They had learned to communicate without words, to support each other through challenges, and to celebrate the small victories that life offered. In many ways, their connection was deeper than many others who rushed into love, because it was rooted in understanding, respect, and patience. By the time fall arrived, the air crisp and the fields tinged with gold, Clint and Emma both knew that their relationship was ready to take the next step. It wasn't a decision made lightly or impulsively. It was the result of months of careful observation, shared effort, and growing trust. Clint admired Emma's intelligence, courage, and kindness. Emma respected Clint's strength, honesty, and dedication. Together they felt a completeness neither had felt before, a sense that they were not only choosing each other but were truly ready to face life as partners. And so, as the first leaves began to fall, Clint found himself speaking words he had long kept in his heart. "Emma," he said one quiet evening, "I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" Emma looked at him, her eyes shining in the fading light, and without hesitation she said, "Yes, I will." That simple, powerful agreement marked the end of their courtship and the beginning of a new chapter. Their relationship had grown slowly, carefully, and with purpose, and now it was ready to become something permanent. Neither Clint nor Emma knew exactly what the future held, but they were confident that together they could face anything. They had learned patience, trust, and the value of partnership. Lessons that would guide them through the coming challenges and joys of life together. For Clint, the cowboy who had always thought he needed a perfect, innocent bride, Emma represented something far more valuable, a partner who could teach him, challenge him, and stand by him in every aspect of life. For Emma, the sheltered young woman who had ventured into the unknown, Clint represented safety, love, and a future full of possibilities. And in that quiet, golden Montana evening, as they walked hand in hand across the fields, both of them understood that they had found something rare and extraordinary. Love built on respect, understanding, and the promise of a life shared together. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and clear, with a gentle sun climbing over the rolling Montana hills. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of wildflowers and fresh hay from the ranch fields nearby. Clint woke before sunrise, as he often did, but today his routine felt different. The usual chores, feeding the animals, checking the fences, and inspecting the barn, still needed to be done, but his mind kept drifting to Emma. He felt a mix of excitement and nerves that he couldn't quite shake. Today was the day they had promised each other, the day their careful courtship would become something permanent. He wanted everything to be perfect, though he knew perfection was impossible, and that made him even more anxious. Emma, meanwhile, was in her family home, a small house nestled at the edge of town. Her parents bustled around her, helping her into the simple but elegant white dress she had chosen months ago. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the fabric. Though she tried to steady herself with deep breaths, she thought of Clint, picturing him walking across the fields toward the chapel, his boots crunching on the dirt road, his wide-brimmed hat casting a shadow over his thoughtful eyes. A small smile spread across her face. She trusted him completely, and yet the reality of the moment, the commitment, the step into the unknown, made her pulse quicken. The chapel was small and sunlit, its wooden beams polished to a soft glow. Friends and family gathered, chatting quietly, with children peeking from behind their parents to see the bride. The smell of flowers filled the room, roses, daisies, and lilies, arranged simply but beautifully. Clint arrived early, as was his habit, adjusting his shirt and boots, feeling out of place in the dress clothes that replaced his usual rugged ranch attire. Yet as soon as he saw Emma step into the chapel, glowing in her white dress, all his nervousness disappeared. She looked radiant, calm, and more beautiful than he had imagined. The ceremony was simple, reflecting their personalities and their life together. There were no grand decorations or extravagant gestures, just people who cared about them witnessing their commitment. The minister spoke softly about love, patience, and partnership, words that resonated deeply with both Clint and Emma. When Clint took Emma's hands in his, he felt a wave of emotion, love, pride, and a sense of responsibility all at once. He looked into her eyes and saw trust and warmth there, and he realized that he had never felt anything so profound. Emma, in turn, saw in Clint's gaze a devotion she had always hoped for, a steady presence that promised protection, respect, and companionship. As the minister pronounced them husband and wife, the chapel filled with applause and soft cheers. Clint and Emma exchanged a quick, shy kiss, feeling the joy of the moment without needing to show it loudly. Outside, the afternoon sun illuminated the fields, and guests lingered to offer congratulations. Clint guided Emma gently through the crowd, accepting handshakes, hugs, and smiles. She laughed softly at the teasing from some of the older ranchers, who joked about how Clint had finally met his match. Despite the attention, the couple felt a quiet satisfaction. They were surrounded by loved ones, yet the world still seemed to belong to just the two of them. After the ceremony, they returned to the ranch for a small reception. The long tables were set outdoors, shaded by old trees and decorated with simple wildflower arrangements. Food was plentiful but unpretentious. Roasted meats, fresh bread, pies, and bowls of fruit. Everyone shared stories, laughter, and quiet moments, celebrating not just a wedding, but the joining of two lives. Clint moved through the crowd with Emma at his side, introducing her to ranch hands who had been part of his life for years. She smiled politely, engaging in conversation despite her natural shyness, and gradually felt more comfortable in the open, bustling world of the ranch. The day was full of small, memorable moments. Clint and Emma danced for the first time together, not with elegance, but with laughter. stepping on each other's toes and spinning in wide circles. Children chased each other across the grass, while adults shared quiet smiles, watching the couple enjoy their first moments as husband and wife. For Clint, every glance at Emma was a reminder of the journey that had brought them here, from the county fair to the ranch, through months of learning, laughter, and shared effort. For Emma, every touch, every word, every gentle look from Clint reinforced the trust and love she felt, and she realized that she was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. As the sun began to dip behind the mountains, the festivities gradually quieted. Guests said their goodbyes, leaving the couple alone for the first time in their new life together. The ranch, now bathed in the golden glow of evening, felt different, more personal, more intimate. Clint and Emma walked slowly toward the small cabin on the property, hands clasped, hearts beating in unison. Each step carried a mix of excitement and apprehension. They had dreamed of this day for months, but now the reality was here. The cabin, modest but comfortable, was filled with flowers and soft blankets, a welcoming space for their first night as husband and wife. Clint paused at the door, looking at Emma with a mix of pride and vulnerability. He had imagined this moment countless times in his mind, picturing himself strong, confident, and ready. Yet now, standing beside her, he felt a strange nervousness, a quiet uncertainty he hadn't anticipated. Emma noticed the shift in his demeanor and reached for his hand. "It's okay," she said softly. "We're together, and that's what matters. We'll figure everything else out together." Her words were simple, but they carried reassurance and calmness. Clint nodded, taking a deep breath, grateful for her understanding. They entered the cabin, settling into the quiet warmth of their new home. The room smelled faintly of wood and flowers, and the soft light from the lanterns cast shadows across the walls. Clint tried to speak, but found that words failed him. Emma, sensing his hesitation, simply smiled and guided him to sit beside her. They talked quietly at first, about their day, about the people they had seen, and about the shared excitement for the life ahead. Their conversation was filled with laughter and gentle teasing, but also a deep recognition that their relationship was evolving into something more profound. As evening deepened into night, Clint and Emma began to face the reality of intimacy. The first night together as husband and wife, Clint, who had envisioned this moment as a test of his masculinity and strength, suddenly felt unsure and inexperienced. Emma, patient and understanding, noticed his hesitation. She did not judge or criticize. Instead, she spoke gently, guiding him, explaining what mattered most: trust, patience, and connection. Clint realized in that quiet moment that love was not about performance or expectation. It was about understanding and caring for each other. Their first night became a learning experience rather than a perfect event. Clint learned to listen, to follow Emma's cues, and to embrace the vulnerability that comes with true closeness. Emma, in turn, guided him with kindness and patience, showing that intimacy was as much about emotional connection as physical presence. They laughed softly at mistakes, encouraged each other, and discovered that love was strongest when it was mutual, honest, and patient. By the end of the night, Clint felt a deep sense of relief and joy. He had feared the unknown, but he had also discovered something far more important: that love and trust were stronger than fear or insecurity. Emma, equally fulfilled, felt grateful for Clint's willingness to learn, his sincerity, and his gentle presence. Together they fell asleep for the first time as husband and wife, hearts aligned, ready to face the future together. The wedding day had been everything they hoped for: beautiful, simple, and memorable. But more importantly, it had been the start of a partnership built on understanding, respect, and shared growth. Clint and Emma knew that challenges lay ahead, but they also knew that they could face anything together. The ranch, the chapel, and the golden Montana fields would witness their love story unfold, a story not of perfection, but of patience, trust, and the quiet joy of two hearts learning to beat in harmony. The night had fallen over the Montana ranch, and the world outside the cabin was quiet except for the soft rustle of the wind through the tall grass and the occasional call of an owl. Inside, the cabin was warm and filled with the soft glow of a lantern. Clint and Emma sat together on the small couch, their hands still intertwined from the day's events. The wedding had been beautiful, the celebration full of laughter and smiles, but now a different kind of moment awaited them. A moment that both excited and unnerved them. Their first night together as husband and wife was here, and with it came feelings Clint had never fully experienced. Anticipation, nervousness, and a surprising sense of fear. Clint had spent much of his life imagining this night in idealized terms. In his mind, he pictured himself confident and strong, able to handle everything naturally. Yet now, as he looked at Emma, he realized that he didn't know exactly what to do. Her presence, her calm and gentle expression, only made him more aware of his uncertainty. Emma noticed the change immediately. She could sense the tension in his shoulders, the quickening of his breath, and the way his hands trembled slightly as he tried to steady them. "It's okay," she said softly, her voice carrying warmth and reassurance. "We don't have to rush anything. We have all the time in the world." Clint nodded, grateful for her words, but still feeling embarrassed. He had thought that being a man meant he would know how to handle every situation, yet here he was, frozen by nerves. Emma, sensing his struggle, took a deep breath and leaned closer, placing her hand gently over his. "Clint," she said quietly, "this isn't about doing it perfectly. It's about us being together. You don't have to know everything right now. I'll be with you every step of the way." Her words had a calming effect. Clint felt a little of his tension ease, though the fear remained. He realized that he had been carrying expectations of perfection, expectations that were unnecessary and unfair to both of them. Emma's presence reminded him that intimacy was about trust, patience, and connection, not performance. He took a deep breath, allowing himself to relax slightly, and looked into her eyes. In that moment, he saw encouragement, understanding, and love, a reminder that they were partners, facing this new experience together. Emma guided him gently, speaking softly about what she liked, what felt comfortable, and how important it was to pay attention to each other. Clint listened carefully, absorbing every word. For the first time, he understood that intimacy wasn't about acting on impulse or following imagined rules. It was about observing, responding, and being considerate. He began to realize that learning together could be a part of the joy, rather than something to fear. They started slowly, focusing on small gestures of closeness, a hand held, a gentle touch, a soft whisper. Each moment built trust and comfort between them. Clint discovered that he could communicate love without words, that simply being present and attentive mattered more than any action he had imagined. Emma, in turn, offered reassurance and guidance without pressure, showing him that patience and understanding were the foundation of their connection. At times, Clint felt his nerves return. He would hesitate, unsure if he was doing the right thing, and Emma would smile, squeezing his hand gently. "It's okay," she said. "We're learning together. Don't worry about doing it perfectly." Her calm, patient approach allowed him to relax, and slowly the fear began to dissolve. He realized that his anxiety had come from trying to meet an imagined standard, not from the reality of being with Emma. Laughter even found its way into the quiet cabin. Small mistakes and awkward moments were met with soft chuckles and shared smiles. Each laugh eased the tension, reminding Clint that love didn't need to be flawless. It just needed to be real. Emma's gentle humor and warm presence made him feel safe, and he began to embrace the experience rather than fear it. He noticed how natural and confident she was, and that gave him courage. Her willingness to guide him without judgment allowed him to let go of the need to perform, focusing instead on connection and care. They talked as much as they could, sharing thoughts, feelings, and quiet reassurances. Clint admitted his fears, explaining that he had imagined this night differently, with more certainty and control. Emma listened attentively, nodding with understanding. "Clint," she said softly, "love isn't about knowing everything. It's about being willing to grow together, to trust each other, and to care. That's what matters." Her words resonated deeply with him. He realized that vulnerability was not a weakness, but a bridge to deeper intimacy. Time passed gently, marked not by urgency but by shared attention. Clint learned to follow Emma's guidance, to notice the small cues, and to act with thoughtfulness rather than assumption. Each step was an opportunity to build trust, each shared moment a lesson in patience and care. Emma's calm demeanor helped him stay focused, and her encouragement gave him confidence he hadn't realized he was missing. Together, they explored their new closeness slowly, discovering the joy in connection rather than the pressure of expectation. By the middle of the night, Clint felt a shift within himself. The initial fear had lessened, replaced by a quiet confidence born of understanding. He no longer worried about doing everything perfectly. Instead, he focused on Emma, on her comfort, her reactions, and the mutual trust they shared. For the first time, he understood that intimacy was not a test, but a journey they were taking together. He marveled at the patience and warmth she showed, and he vowed silently to always honor that trust, to never take it for granted. Emma, too, felt a growing sense of closeness. She had anticipated that Clint might be nervous, but she hadn't expected the depth of vulnerability he displayed. Her respect and affection for him grew as she realized how sincerely he cared about their connection, and how willing he was to learn and listen. That night, she felt that their marriage was beginning not just with ceremony, but with understanding, communication, and trust, the strongest foundation possible. As the night wore on, they rested together, holding each other and speaking in soft tones about the day, their hopes for the future, and the simple joy of being together. Clint's initial fear had transformed into appreciation and love. He realized that perfection was never the goal. Understanding and care were what mattered most. Emma, reassured by his presence and willingness to learn, felt a sense of peace and security she had never experienced before. When they finally fell asleep, it was not with the tension of fear or uncertainty, but with the comfort of shared experience and mutual trust. Their first night as husband and wife had not gone as either had imagined. Yet, it had gone better than either could have hoped. They had learned about each other in ways words could not fully capture, and they had discovered that love was about guidance, patience, and connection, not expectation or performance. By the early morning, the first light of dawn spilled through the cabin windows, painting the room in soft gold. Clint woke briefly, feeling Emma's hand in his and the warmth of her presence beside him. For the first time, he truly felt that their life together had begun, not just in ceremony, but in understanding and shared care. He thought about the months they had spent together, the courtship that had prepared them, and the day's lessons. In that quiet moment, he felt gratitude and love, realizing that marriage was not just a promise, it was a living, growing connection that required patience, attention, and trust. Emma stirred, smiling at him with soft eyes. "Good morning," she whispered, and Clint returned the smile, feeling a deep sense of peace. They sat together for a moment, quietly enjoying the early light, knowing that the night had changed something between them. It had been a night of learning, of vulnerability, and of love, and it had set the tone for the life they would build together. Clint had gone into the night expecting to lead, to know, to perform. Instead, he had learned to listen, to follow, and to trust. Emma had gone into the night expecting a gentle guide, and instead had become a teacher of patience, understanding, and care. Together they had discovered that marriage was not about perfection. It was about partnership, growth, and shared hearts. As they prepared to start their first day as a married couple, Clint felt stronger, wiser, and more connected than ever. He knew that challenges lay ahead, but he also knew that together he and Emma could face anything. Their first night had been a true beginning, not of fear, but of understanding, trust, and love. And in that moment, Clint realized that the journey they had started at the county fair months ago had finally blossomed into something extraordinary. A love that was real, grounded, and built to last. The days following the wedding were full of quiet, ordinary moments that held extraordinary meaning for Clint and Emma. Life on the ranch continued with its usual rhythm, feeding the animals, checking fences, repairing equipment, but now each task was shared, experienced together. The small cabin they had moved into felt warmer, fuller, alive with the laughter, conversation, and companionship of two people learning to live as one. Every morning, Clint would rise early, just as he had always done. But now he took care to make coffee for Emma before she woke, or leave a small note telling her how much he appreciated her. Emma, in turn, brought small comforts to their days: a freshly baked pie waiting on the table, a scarf neatly folded for him before a chilly morning, or simply a quiet smile that reminded Clint that she understood and valued all he did. Their first night together had set the tone for the months to come. Clint had learned that patience, attentiveness, and humility were just as important as strength, and Emma had realized that guidance and gentle reassurance could build confidence and connection in a partner. With this understanding, they faced the early challenges of married life not with fear, but with curiosity and mutual support. They laughed together when things didn't go perfectly, like the time a calf got loose and they had to chase it across the field, or when a basket of laundry tipped over, sending socks flying across the cabin floor. These small mishaps were not embarrassments. They were opportunities to grow, to trust, and to support one another. Clint, who had once been self-reliant to the point of solitude, began to notice how much richer life became when shared. Tasks that had previously been routine now carried a sense of purpose and joy. Mornings were brighter with Emma's presence, evenings warmer with her laughter. He felt his heart opening in ways he hadn't anticipated, and he marveled at how a simple partnership could transform every part of life. Emma, too, found a new strength within herself. She had stepped into a world that was unfamiliar and often challenging, yet she had learned to navigate it with courage, patience, and grace. She discovered that she could adapt, teach, and guide, all while maintaining her sense of self. Their love deepened through everyday routines. Clint learned to appreciate Emma's wisdom and her ability to see solutions he might overlook. Emma grew to admire Clint's work ethic, his quiet determination, and his willingness to learn and grow. Each challenge they faced together, whether a stubborn fence that needed fixing, an unexpected storm, or a difficult day with the cattle, became a shared experience, strengthening their bond. They discovered that love was not just about grand gestures or romantic moments, but about consistency, support, and shared responsibility. As the seasons changed, so did their relationship. Autumn brought long walks through golden fields, collecting fallen leaves and observing the patterns of the land. Winter arrived with snow covering the ranch in a soft blanket of white, and evenings were spent by the fire reading, talking, and planning for the future. Spring brought new life to the fields, with calves being born and the first shoots of grass breaking through the earth. Clint and Emma celebrated these milestones together, not as two separate individuals, but as partners deeply invested in the life they were building. Each season carried lessons, and each lesson drew them closer. Intimacy, which had been a source of nervousness on their first night, became a natural and cherished part of their marriage. Clint no longer felt pressure to perform or meet imagined expectations. Instead, he focused on Emma's comfort and happiness, finding joy in connection and shared moments. Emma, confident in Clint's sincerity and attentiveness, grew more open and expressive. Together, they explored their relationship, learning how to communicate desires, comfort one another, and grow emotionally and physically as partners. Their love matured, rooted in understanding, patience, and mutual respect. Beyond the confines of their home, their relationship also affected their interactions with others. Clint became more patient and reflective, influenced by Emma's calm and thoughtful nature. Ranch hands noticed the change in him. He smiled more often, listened more carefully, and shared small moments of humor and warmth. Emma, too, became more confident in her own abilities, respected by neighbors and townspeople for her intelligence, grace, and capability. Together, they were admired not just as a couple, but as individuals who complemented and strengthened each other. Their bond was strengthened further by small rituals and traditions they created together. Sunday mornings became a time for coffee and quiet walks through the fields. Evenings were often spent cooking together, sharing stories of the day or reading by the fire. Clint taught Emma the finer details of ranch work, while Emma shared books and ideas that expanded Clint's world. These routines, though simple, were deeply meaningful. They symbolized the care, commitment, and mutual support that underpinned their marriage. Of course, challenges did arise. Weather could be harsh, work exhausting, and the demands of running a ranch sometimes overwhelming. Yet each obstacle became an opportunity for teamwork. Clint learned to lean on Emma's judgment and insight, and Emma grew more confident in her ability to handle unexpected situations. They discovered that partnership was not about equality in every task, but about using their strengths together, supporting each other, and finding solutions as a team. These experiences reinforced the trust and respect that had been built from their very first days together. As the months turned into a year, Clint and Emma reflected on their journey. A cowboy who had once imagined an idealized, perfect bride realized that what he truly needed was someone with patience, kindness, and wisdom. Emma, who had once been sheltered and cautious, discovered a life filled with adventure, learning, and love beyond what she had imagined. Together, they had built a foundation of trust, respect, and shared growth. Their marriage was no longer defined by fear or uncertainty, but by confidence, understanding, and the knowledge that they could face life's challenges hand in hand. Their love also grew deeper through the small, unexpected moments of joy, a quiet morning watching the sunrise over the fields, a shared laugh when a horse refused to cooperate, a soft touch during an evening conversation. These moments, though ordinary, became sacred. They reminded Clint and Emma that marriage was not about perfection or grand gestures, but about consistent presence, care, and affection. They celebrated each other's achievements, supported each other through struggles, and found happiness in the simple act of being together. Clint often thought back to the night when Emma had guided him through their first moments of intimacy. What had once been a source of fear and embarrassment had become a symbol of growth and understanding. That night had taught him patience, humility, and the value of learning together. It had set the tone for their marriage, reminding him that true love was not about expectations or performance, but about care, connection, and mutual growth. Emma, too, remembered that night as a turning point, a moment when she had seen Clint's heart and willingness to learn, and realized that together they could face anything. Over time, their story became one of quiet inspiration for others in the community. Neighbors admired the way Clint and Emma complemented each other, the respect and care they showed, and the patience with which they navigated the challenges of married life. Their love was not loud or flashy, but steady, enduring, and deeply genuine. It reminded everyone around them that marriage was not a single moment or event, but a lifelong journey of understanding, trust, and shared growth. Years later, Clint and Emma would look back on those first months together with gratitude. They remembered the county fair where they met, the small steps of their courtship, the wedding day filled with laughter and warmth, and the first night that had taught them so much. Each memory was a thread in the tapestry of their life, woven together with patience, love, and mutual respect. They realized that what they had built was stronger than either could have imagined, rooted in real life, sustained by shared effort, and deepened by the trials and joys they had faced together. In the end, Clint learned that the cowboy life he loved could be shared without losing its meaning, and Emma discovered that stepping into the unknown could bring more happiness and growth than she had ever dreamed. Together, they had found a love that was not only passionate but also patient, kind, and enduring. They had learned that true intimacy was built on understanding, communication, and care, and that marriage was not about perfection, but about partnership. And so, life on the ranch continued, sometimes hard, sometimes challenging, always filled with work. But Clint and Emma faced it together. Each day brought new lessons, small victories, and shared moments of joy. They grew not only as a couple but as individuals, each strengthened by the other's presence. Their journey, which had begun with a chance meeting at a county fair, had blossomed into a life of love, trust, and partnership. The cowboy and his bride had discovered the true meaning of marriage, a shared life built on respect, patience, and the quiet but unshakable foundation of real love.